Hey, so I decided to do something a little weird, not just location-wise. The location's for a reason, because as mentioned a couple of times, I was thinking about doing a video on my pipes or whatever. And yeah, this is what I keep my tobacco stuff in. So, I guess one of the things, this is not my only tobacco, but this is kind of how I get it, not just this brand. I got another one, Smoker's Pride. Is this one? No, this is Super Value. I get Smoker's Pride too, which comes in a different, basically it's the cheapest tobacco I can get. It's cheaper than other bulk tobaccos and stuff, except for stuff that's essentially the same as cigarette tobacco. I don't particularly like this one. I like Black Cavendish, but I tend to mix them. So I use a little bit of this in my Black Cavendish. You can kind of see the mixture here. But I also, especially because it's summertime, smoke this stuff with a little bit of Black Cavendish mixed in. So this is probably ideally somewhere between 30 to 50% Black Cavendish, and this is somewhere between 75 and 90% Black Cavendish. I like the Black Cavendish the most because it's nice and mild. This stuff kind of burns my throat when I smoke it too much. Also, this particular brand I find is too moist. It's too good a tobacco. The other one that I get tends to be a little bit drier, a little bit staler. It's still not as good as what I'm used to, which was buying it from the drugstore, and they would get a shipment when I bought them out, and basically they'd get like 6 bags of it, and then over the course of a year or so, I'd buy each one of those 6 bags because nobody else bought it. For an ashtray, I use a coffee can. And this didn't used to always be the only thing that I'd use as an ashtray, but it's working as one. Now this is, okay, let's start going through my pipes. This is a fairly recent one that I picked up, I think I got it through Pipes and Cigars, which is where I mainly am buying my tobacco nowadays. Every now and then they have a sale or a deal on a pipe, and this is actually a pretty decent one that I haven't done too much damage to yet. But let's start looking at some of my others. And I got a lot of tobacco that's loose. I've got little pieces of paper. So what I do is, some of my pipes are damaged, and I take like paper napkins that I've brought home from the bar or whatever for cleaning my glasses, and I end up using them. And another thing, yeah, we're not talking about the stuff you're interested in, I'm sure. We're looking at the gross stuff that I involve in my habit. Old Q-tips. I use a Q-tip once or something, and well, I use it over a course of time until it gets dirty, and then I start using it to remount my pipes with. I'm sure that's not the most sanitary use of used Q-tips, but and then of course, because of my lighter, I have Zippo things, and I also have a pack of cigarettes that I found in Phoenix many years ago, and I slowly I give them out to friends or whatever. I've had a couple of packs recently, I guess, this way, but this was a full pack that I found, and every now and then I'm in the mood for a cigarette, so it's good to have something like that. One thing you got to be careful of is when you have like the leavings. Some of this is reused ash, but most of it's real tobacco, so I just stir it back in. Basically, I haven't had it down this low, so I haven't been able to clean it that much. Okay, let's start looking at some pipes, but let me get one loaded up while I do that. This one hasn't been terribly good. I don't know where I got this one, but I bought it new again. I don't have a source of used pipes. I used to buy used pipes all the time, and now I can't do it. But this one developed a crack maybe very early on, and I had to cover it with some electrical tape. It's just not a great smoker. And with this wet tobacco, it's especially not good. And I mean, we're not talking really wet, we're talking just moist, like it's soft in touch. And yeah, I keep these in ice cream containers. I really liked these ice cream containers. So this used to be, I used to use these trays for a couple of things. I probably should put one out. It's not going to help me much. I used to use these to keep some of my mess, but then I found this bin. The bin keeps my mess, but those are somehow relegated. And I use them as cutting boards as well. All right, got a couple of these. These came kind of together. I may have gotten these from Thompson or from the other. It was also mail order pipes. I think I bought a set of pipes through Pipes and Tobacco, and these were a couple of them. And here you see, here's where I've got that little bit of paper from a napkin or whatever. It has to be kind of a soft paper. It's because a certain swelling and relaxation of the wood happens, and eventually the pipe no longer sticks, the stem no longer sticks into, the mouthpiece no longer sticks into the stem correctly. All of these guys are just simple like this. If they had a filter on them, I'd pull that out so that I can get my lung cancer quicker. This guy has the same kind of thing, but he's got a plastic hold here. This is actually really a cheap, crappy pipe, but whatever. This little guy is pretty good. Again, seem more modern era for me, and it's actually in pretty good shape. It's kind of small, so I don't usually use it except when I'm like, oh, I only have 20 minutes. This will only take that long or whatever. Not that it's too different. These guys, I used to use these guys a lot when gaming, and now they're too small for me for gaming for some reason. I don't know, what happened. And they also stopped smoking as well. It's one problem with pipes, even if you're trying to clean them in something. Eventually, they just don't get as good. And I go after them. I don't have it here. I have a little knife, it's not a lock blade, but a little pocket knife type thing that I use to clean my my pipes out with. My Psycho Ex, who kind of got me hooked on pipe smoking, she gave me a couple of things. I bought a corn cob and some apple tobacco the very first time. I got hooked on smoking on cigars, and I was constantly buying cigars that were like 15 cents each, machine wrapped, and they were like factory seconds or something from the machine wrapping. Some of them would be a little bad, they would fall apart or something a little bit. But most, a cut filler, most of them were pretty decent. And then, for what they were, and a lot cheaper than like White Owl or something like that, one of the name brands. That was like that. The crows are active. We've got some young ones. And anyway, she stole some stuff from her dad, who used to smoke pipe but no longer did. And she got me some of his pipes and his pipe knife, which is useful now. Of course, somewhere in here, I have these sort of ubiquitous pipe tools. I have a few of these, and they're kind of useful. I never find the scoop or the tamp terribly useful. It's the reamer that I find useful, and honestly, I don't need that because I've tended to use pipe cleaners, which, like everything else in my life, I reuse, and Q-tips for those. I also have a bunch of matches and lighters and stuff in here that I kind of can paw through. And you can kind of see what my life is like, you know, this is how everything in my life is. It's kind of like this chaotic bin of shit. And this is, you know, stuff I use regularly. This is just a cigar cutter. Seems to have rusted a little bit. I've kind of stopped smoking cigars. I was smoking them a lot in Phoenix. But moving here, they just didn't seem as right. And it's probably for the best because I've been putting on weight anyway. And I tended to drink my big glasses of magic milkshakes, chocolate milk with vodka in it, strong on the chocolate and strong on the vodka too. And then later I discovered the neat idea of throwing some cranberry juice in it, which made a really, really nice kind of almost a Black Forest cake out of it. All right, let's keep pawing through these. Okay, this is a bastard. I don't even know where the original mouthpiece of this is. I have a few of these where I just have mouthpieces, and I don't know why I have them. This was from a very good pipe, but it broke off while I was in there. You can see this is, there's no way I can recover this in any sense, and I don't know why I keep it. A lot of my pipes I break off, I don't know if you can see this, but right at the edge, a little piece just by biting it off. This one's another case. This was made up of 2 pipes, and I think somehow I always throw the balls away and keep the broken mouthpieces, which are useless. But in this case, this was a weird acrylic pipe that was really a pain in the ass to clean, but it had this little mouthpiece. Now when this thing's mouthpiece just shattered, it had a very cheap mouthpiece. This may have been it. It looks about right. And again, I don't know why I keep the mouthpiece. Some thoughts of taping it into place or something. I replaced the mouthpiece from the other one into this. It happened to more or less fit. Again, I've got paper in there because it never actually fit. And this actually worked fairly well. This pipe was made in China, of all places. And it's really funny because the mouthpiece was a cheap, cheap piece of shit. Something about equivalent to what you'd get with a cheap corn cob. You know, like, I guess now they're about $5, but I remember them being about 2. Whereas the pipe itself, it's split. You know, I drop these things. The wood's not great, but it's a solid chunk of wood that somebody put, you know, if you consider the amount of money that went into the bowl for the pipe, which maybe isn't that much or whatever, and the tiny cheap shit piece of plastic that they put in as a mouthpiece, man, you don't understand what's going on. It actually smokes fairly well still for something that looks like such a little bastard. This one, once upon a time, was a good pipe. Again, I bit the mouthpiece. I just put too much pressure on that. This is a nice big ball. The problem with big balls like this is towards the bottom, you get a bunch of crap that just collects there. Now you knife it out or whatever, but what it means is you're not actually smoking a fair proportion of what you put in the ball. Corn cobs have the same problem, actually. This was actually a pretty expensive pipe. I bought it at a pipe shop that I was going to in Phoenix. They did mail order as well, but I used to go in there and just buy my tobacco. I mainly went there for cigars, but I ended up buying pipe tobacco every so often because they had, you know, fancier blends and stuff, just homemade blends, but fresher stuff. But then I learned, you know, I don't like the fresher stuff. I like my tobacco to be a little stale, and in fact, when I buy pipe tobacco like this that's too fresh, at one point I started baking it in the oven to stale it out a little bit. But anyway, this was a pretty damn good pipe. The mouthpiece was pretty good. The curve, you know, the bent stem always collects up a lot of resin and everything. These are harder to clean, so I don't like it for that, but it smokes well. Pair that came together. These I definitely got from Thompson. These I got back when I was in Buffalo. They are among my oldest pipes left, but I bought them new, again from mail order. They were a pair, they were very good, but I chewed through. This was a very strong acrylic. I'm shocked that I chewed through it. And then I got a crack in the bowl here. This one was really sort of my main go-to pipe for indoors. It had a nice big bowl like this one does. It's actually why I bought this one, was as a replacement for this. But the straighter stem made it an easier smoke, and I liked this one a lot. I'd also take this for very long walks. This one I would tend to take for short walks and also for working. Now, this one's got a lot of buildup, and I can probably clean most of that out. I've done it before, but it's kind of built up to the point where it's not really a good smoker anymore. So it's one that I have to get around to. The problem is with the mouthpiece broken, it doesn't, it doesn't serve the purpose it used to for me. And what do we got here? We got a bowl that's unknown. And this is one of those, I don't know what to do with this. I don't remember where this one's from or anything about it. It's Italian. Yeah, I can't even really remember this one. Whatever the mouthpiece was for it, I obviously don't have anymore. It reminds me a little bit, I had one that I had for a long time, and maybe this is actually it. If it is, it's this one. Yeah, maybe. No. Or it may be this one, but this isn't the one that I'm thinking of. I had one that I used a lot for a long time that had kind of this shape that I really liked. I don't think this one ever lived up to its expectations, and then with the mouthpiece, without a mouthpiece that fits it, that doesn't work very well. And this little guy, it came with this mouthpiece, and I can still screw it in, but I've split the stem and it broke. This was one that I found on campus the last time I was an undergrad, which would be about 15 years ago or so. And it was kind of a brand new pipe when I found it. Actually, I may not have found it. Maybe one of the campus police found it and said, we've got a pipe lying around for a couple of years. Do you want it? I think that's actually how I got that one. Another reason why I picked this one up was this was a long-term standby for me, again from Buffalo. I bought this actually at like a CVS or something, and again the mouthpiece is broken. I liked it a lot. It was a good smoker for a fairly cheap pipe. Nothing fancy about it. The wood's kind of cheap, but it held up pretty well. And again, I have this, and it doesn't get a lot of my smoking time these days. This one I think I bought used. I really need a knife to get in here because it's got some crap in it. And it never worked very well. I kept this at my mom's house in case, because I usually didn't, first of all, I didn't really want it when I was trying to think when I had it at my mom's house and when I brought it back. I think I brought it back when I shipped my games up. It was never a good smoker, mainly because the stem is just too thin. It clogs up too easily. And it's got this kind of big bowl that never lights and really smokes properly. Somewhere or another, I got a couple of corn cobs. I almost always used to have a corn cob, and I still apparently almost always do, but they don't last very long. These two were both more solid. This one's a teeny tiny shiny guy. I'm pretty sure I got this one out of Pipes and Cigars. I'm not sure where I got this one from. But I used to smoke corn cobs a lot more than I do now. when you first get them, they're clean, good smokes. But then they start getting really kind of nasty because they start burning the inside too much. And you can't really clean them the same way that you can clean a regular pipe out. These two were also from Pipes and Cigars. Again, a couple of small ones. This one I got first, and I was like, oh, it's a tiny pipe, I'm not gonna like it. It is a great smoker and a fantastic little pipe, nice straight mouthpiece. This one never worked quite as well. I thought, oh, it would be cool. Well, no. It feels more like a pot pipe or something. Now I've had a couple. I had a little clay pipe that was made for pot that I tried. You know, that it wasn't much smaller than this, just a little bit smaller. It was totally useless. This at least I can get a 10-minute smoke or something off of. I'd actually preferred this, but these guys sit in the bottom of my barrel, and because they're corn cobs, they get so dirty that I don't want to deal with them at all. There's something else I use. Sometimes you bite down on the mouthpiece so much that a pipe cleaner no longer works, and twist ties are a good way to clean those guys out if you can't get a pipe cleaner through them. Now, I gotta get some of this out of there. Let's put it in with this. Yeah, this is probably going to be really gross to smoke now. I put too much of that stuff in at once. So on to some of the ones that I smoke more often. These are let me get some of these guys out of the way. Try to get them where they go. I have a pipe, I actually have two pipe racks, both at my mom's. One of them I really want to get back. It's like a shield that hangs on the wall, and all the pipes have a hang on it. But instead I keep them, you know, in this bucket of mess now because I'm not about to buy a pipe rack when I have two that I just have to figure out how to get into my knife again. Let me think about these guys. Okay, so these are the three that I probably smoke the most right now. And I don't know when I got this one. This one's one of my older ones. I think I may have had it in Buffalo. No, I think I picked this up in Phoenix at the smoke shop. It is, again, a good solid pipe, good smoking pipe. And this has become one of my favorites overall. It didn't used to be. It used to be too clean. Now, I don't know what happens, but there's a certain point where some pipes are just too clean, and this eventually accumulated enough crap inside that it tastes right now. Now, at some point, it's going to have too much, and then I have to clean it out. This guy I got definitely from Pipes and Cigars, I think. And again, the stem ends up, you know, expanding or whatever and swelling, and I have to use paper on it. But it's been a pretty good smoker. I probably smoke certain pipes too much, and that causes more expansion. And this one also has turned out to be a pretty damn good smoker. Most of them are briars. This is an Italian briar. I don't know where I got this one from specifically. It's held up pretty well. It's got a good mouthpiece. A lot of it for me is the mouthpiece because that's what I break. Now, I have some oddities, some of which I don't have here. So, one is my ex-wife got me a meerschaum when she was in Turkey, and I unfortunately broke that sucker. They're so delicate, they're like eggshells, basically. And not that good a smoker. They get very hot. I assume clay pipes also do. Maybe even get hotter. The other, I've got to figure out where everything goes. Don't worry, we're not done yet. But I'm not used to pulling everything out of here, so the world is a little different in terms of repositioning stuff. Another one that was interesting was that my dad found one at a tag sale or an auction that was silver inlaid, and it had a real amber stem. Unfortunately, it was broken. The stem was already broken when I got it. I've tried to figure out ways to get the real amber stem to work. There's no way I can convince myself to replace, an amber stem. And anything else just doesn't look as classy. It's really this pretty pipe. Okay. Let's keep going. So this one has its own box. Most of them I take out of their box, and I'm not going to store them in the box. The box ends up being a place to keep pens. But there's a calabash. My first calabash was one I found at a used store in Buffalo, and it was an heirloom piece or whatever. It was an older calabash, and I paid like $60 for it. It was a beautiful pipe. Eventually, the gourd this is made out of a gourd. This is a piece of stone that you put in. You can replace the stone in each calabash, but I'll tell you why that's not important now. But it was an older style one, looked more like a Sherlock Holmes pipe than this did. Had a sturdier mouthpiece. This has a very flimsy mouthpiece that I'm always afraid I'm going to break. But the biggest problem with a calabash, they have a few problems. They smoke kind of well. It's an interesting and different smoke, almost like a cooler smoke. Because you're not getting all that smoke collects up in here. Basically, the pipe's burning here, the smoke moves into here, and it becomes almost like a hookah or something like that, where you're not really getting that same smoking experience. So that's part of what's kind of wrong with it is, if you're addicted to smoking pipe, you're not getting your normal pipe smoking experience with it. But the other is, they're very, very heavy here, because this is stone. This is basically the outside of a gourd, and then this is just, this doesn't balance, So they hang down. They're very difficult to smoke because of that. And I find myself not really smoking them as much. Now this one I bought new, and unlike the $60 used one that I got, that I was like, oh, I have to have this, at a place where I usually got my pipes for like $2 or $3. And I don't think I have any left from there. Not positive. Yeah, maybe where this one's from. But this was like $25 at a head shop. It's a little flimsier than the one I had. Certainly the mouthpiece is nowhere near as good, but, for the amount that I smoke a calabash and the fact that it's still in good shape. If I still had my old one, and it may be at my mom's house, I could actually probably transfer the parts that are better on the old one, which is the top piece and the mouthpiece, onto this one. You can't be sure though, because if the mouthpieces don't, they cut the calabash to fit the mouthpiece that they're planning on inserting. So if the mouthpieces aren't quite the same, I may end up splitting it. The one I had, that's actually where a lot of the split was happening, was along the stem. Now here's one of the weirder purchases I have. I think this is all I have. I have others from this set. It was a bunch of 6 pipes. None of them they're duplicates of these guys. So I think I have 2 more of this shape, which is sort of more common. With 6 pipes for like $30. These are all wood pipes, except their bowls are not what their bowls look like. And they're uncured wood, so they burn kind of hot. But instead of, so this one goes a little deeper, but most of them have a kind of shallow burning surface, and they don't use the whole bowl at all. That bowl is on here because they do burn hot,
and it's to give your fingers, you know, a little bit less damage, basically. Now, inside there's like a little metal thing to keep the uncured wood from just catching fire, basically. And they're these weird little homemade pipes. The first time I ordered the set, it was declared shipped and never arrived. And you know, I was like, well, it never arrived. Give me my money. I'd like to get the set anyway. And I was told, oh no, we can't duplicate your order. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of a shame. But so I canceled, you know, got my money back. And then I think on the same day I was able to just order it again all over. It's just, you know, it was through Amazon. This one's particularly neat looking. I wish I had two of this one. This one's kind of cool too. It's the two individual ones I like the better, although this one's not bad. This one's got some issues. It's not as deep as the others, so for no apparent reason. But one of the things about these is not only is the pipe uncured wood, but the mouthpiece is also uncured wood. And I have no idea how long these are going to last. I've had these, oh, I don't know, not that long, and I don't smoke them very much. They give a smoke kind of like a corn cob, which is to say, and a meerschaum is similar, but it almost feels like you're smoking sawdust in some ways. It doesn't really feel like a normal smoke. Anyway, I got this thing too, which is, this was actually a pipe bag? I don't think so. This is a camera bag. I'm not sure. And then I have like pouches that I keep my tobacco in. I've had two different types of pouches that I keep tobacco in. I only have one now. It's a standard kind of zipper one. The plastic inside starts ripping eventually. The zipper stops working as well. So you end up with, gosh, I don't know, you know. And this one's kind of large, which is not my favorite. What I actually liked the best was one that was almost like an oilcloth, but it was it's designed kind of like an oilcloth would be, where you just kind of wrap it around and snap it closed. But it had a plastic out. It was made out of plastic instead, and I found that one actually largely kept my tobacco from getting wet in the rain or whatever. It wasn't absolutely perfect. So, for example, I could probably go in the river with the zipper ones, and the tobacco wouldn't get completely ruined. It would probably get some dampness inside of it. I couldn't do that with this one, and you know, like I had it in pockets that were getting filled with water because this is Eugene after all. It was back at that point when I had this one. But for the most part, it worked fine, and zippers tend to break, so it had a little bit more, a little bit longer lifespan than the cheap zipper ones do, even though it's equally cheap with snaps. You know? Anyway, I guess that's about all I have to say. You get to see something about how absolutely batshit crazy I am when, you know, most people are like, oh, they take care of their pipes and they do this. Yeah, I'm not. It's my addiction, that's all, you know. I mean, I don't really view them with a lot of pride or anything. I just want them to smoke well and not to break, and that's basically the thing. Yes, there are some that I feel special about. You know, like, I mean, I would never buy a calabash, and buying the second one, although it was relatively cheap, which is why I decided to do it. But buying this second one was kind of every now and then I want to look like I'm smoking a calabash. But the truth is, I can't go out with it, you know? So the only thing it does is every so often I feel like reading a book with the calabash kind of resting on my chest, because there's no other way to smoke it. You either have to be holding it constantly or resting it on your chest. You know, it's not like my other pipes where, and this one just sucks, but where I've just got it in my mouth. One of my viewers gave me a little a non-Zippo pipe lighter. I have a number of Zippos. And I really liked it, except it's even worse than the Zippo in terms of leaking fluid. And I just couldn't convince myself that I wanted to keep using it when it was running through fluid at like twice the rate. But it's really a pretty nice one. Again, probably from the 1920s or so, I would guess. It was an English brand. And if ever I want to be classy or something, that's what I'd use. But I just use these. Got a terrible, terrible history with Zippos. My mom gave me one that was her uncle's, or I'm sorry, her brother's, my uncle. And he got in the Navy, and it was much smaller than usual, and probably came from the 1950s. Never had a problem with it in the world. Then I found one about like this. It was a black casing. Either I actually think my ex-wife found it in the parking garage where we worked. And, you know, it had a problem with the hinge. Notably, the pin was missing from the hinge. So I used a clip tie to keep the hinge in place. And I continuously was having to replace that. But it didn't hold together well, and in cold weather in the winter, it wouldn't light. Basically, I would have to put it next to my skin and warm it up or shake it or hold it upside down or something like that for a while, so that the fluid would actually, you know, get around enough that it could light. I think the fluid generally leaked otherwise, because I had troubles with that one. That one eventually I lost, and then I bought a pair of Zippo knockoffs that worked okay, but they were obviously much, much cheaper. And one of them I gave to my mom, the other one I kept for myself, and it eventually fell apart in a way, you know, it's not a Zippo, what can I do? Since then I've bought two of these guys. These are cheaper, large Zippos, you know, the low end ones, 16 bucks or whatever. And the first one I bought is this one actually, and all the design is worn off. But again, the hinge went on it, and I don't do all kind of tricks with my Zippo or anything. I just open up, light, close, you know. But yeah, the hinge went, and eventually enough of the hinge went that my little fixes with a clip tie were no longer working. So I sent it in to Zippo to replace, and while it was gone, I'm like, well, I can't really do without a Zippo. So I went and bought another one like it. But unfortunately, that one doesn't even close right from the day I bought it. And I haven't really like gone about sending that one back. But I swapped out the internal mechanism because there was some reason that one actually works better with the other one's internal mechanism. Anyway, so now I have two Zippos, but this is the better of the two. And I kind of, this one's beginning to get too loose, and I'm afraid that the hinge is going to go on it. But anyway, if you are a Zippo person, it's definitely worth getting it replaced for $5 of mailing, you know, getting it fixed, rather than go out and buy another one for 20 bucks, I think. But I figured I'd have two, because that way, while one was whenever one was in the repair shop, I'd have another one. My neighbor does that with cars, except he has like 8 of them. All right, I think that's enough chatter. It was something I wanted to, I know people have asked about it, about my pipe